Marshall said, dutifully climbing up the opposite ladder and carefully slipping his own bag beneath the restraining net behind his seat, and securing his IP's wayward gear at the same time. Lieutenant Wiley stared impatiently at him as he locked down his shoulder and lap restraints. If it was a ploy to throw him off, he was determined to keep it from working. This was supposed to be a final check ride, not an exercise in tripping up the student. But if that's how he wanted to play the game, so be it. Pre-departure briefing, Marshall recited with detached cool as he pulled up the next checklist, apparently satisfying the IP's unspoken demand. Winds favor takeoff on 3-4 left, standard profile. V1 is 131 knots. If there's an engine failure after V1, we'll follow the emergency procedure. Otherwise, we'll maintain center line, heading into the warning area and start our pitch-up maneuver at the entry waypoint, maintaining 60-degree climb angle until engine cutoff at 4 minutes 50 seconds. And is that time hack from launch or pitch up? Pitch up, Marshall confirmed. It always is. Important to know, the IP said, as if he were imparting hard-won wisdom. Marshall nodded as if he'd learned something. Predicted apogee is 380,000 feet, max velocity 1,700 knots. MMO is Mach 3.6. Flight path will take us up along the front range, all inside the warning area. Winds aloft? At which level? Marshall wondered, and decided on the most impactful. He looked up, studying the rows of thin clouds high to the east. Jetstream cores forecast 100 knots out of the northwest, so I expect some mountain wave turbulence between flight levels 360 to 400. Will that be a problem for us? By that point, we'll be at Mach and blow through it fast on the climb, Marshall said. We'll have to suck it up and ride out the bumps on our way down. You might consider extending west after re-entry. Get on the other side of that turbulence and then cross the ridgeline back to base. Marshall felt his eyebrows lift and quickly changed expressions, hoping to hide his reaction. That was a dumbass idea if he'd ever heard one. We'll be a glider at that point, sir. I'll have to see what our energy state is, but I'd prefer to avoid that scenario. We'll see about that, Wiley said, in words pregnant with certitude. Word is, your old man taught you a thing or two about flying gliders. And here we go, Marshall realized. One more prick who wants to make sure I don't get any special favors. Yes, sir. I learned all kinds of tricks from him. The lineup and takeoff were uneventful, but for the merciless kick in the seat that always came from lighting a rocket motor with 30,000 pounds of thrust. Even at partial power, the little space plane hurtled down the runway and leapt into the cobalt sky. Marshall kept still against the headrest, not fighting the steady 2G pull as they accelerated away from the field. His eyes darted across the control panel, alternating his instrument scan with quick peeks outside for any conflicting traffic that ATC might have overlooked. Passing 10,000, he said for the IP's benefit. Initial point in 5, 4, no need to count down, Ensign. Just do it. Arriving at 0 in his head, Marshall silently pushed the throttle full forward and pulled back on the control stick until the nose settled at 60 degrees up. Not vertical, but it sure felt like it. Marshall watched the digital Mach meter tick upward as the little craft shot through the thick lower atmosphere. He could feel the high-frequency vibration building as they became transonic, the control stick buzzing against his hand as the shock wave crept along the wing and over the control surfaces. Even before his instruments gave him the cue, he could feel the spaceplane was ready for one final burst of power. Max Q, he said, and moved the throttle lever to its forward detent, applying the last few thousand pounds of thrust and watching the fuel and oxidizer totals head for 0. He'd burned through most of it up through engine cutoff, hoarding a few hundred pounds in reserve for the return leg, just in case. As expected, wind shear buffeted them as they pierced the coursing jet stream, fast enough that it was no worse than driving over a rough patch of highway. It would feel a lot different on the way back down, with less speed and a lighter craft. He expected to get tossed around like a leaf on the wind. The sky ahead had already turned a deep violet.